Hey, in my forthcoming book, Know Where the Status Quo Ends and You Come to Life, I talk a lot about the model. And in my other videos, I've talked about the model and I've defined it as the control that we really assert to sometimes scrap for a shred of who we are and express that instead of expressing the fullness of who we are so that we secure our place in the hierarchy or the system or the community or the family, and that we're contorting to do that. And that's what's important is we, across the board in humanity, there's a part of us, or for some of us, a lot of who we are that is not exposed and not being expressed. And that's a big problem and is what's caused a lot of our strife in humanity. So I wanted to pinpoint why I call it the model. I had a pre-reader read my book and they asked the question, why that? And it's really simple. We may have heard people say this or experienced it for ourselves, where somebody tells us, you're a model parent or you're a model citizen. And to me, that's actually not a compliment. It means that you're checking all the boxes and fitting the role to a standard instead of the way that you do it yourself. If they were really complimenting you, they would describe what they saw you doing well naturally and by your own expression. They might say, wow, I see a person who is incredibly organized and can rally people and get them to respond and show up and be ready, right? That would be a high compliment where the person actually builds self-concept by that way of expression from the other person. And what happens is they self-validate. So it's the opposite. And maybe I won't go too far into this, but parents who are saying good job, or when we say good job to everybody, it's actually getting people to constantly look for validation. And it's in truth troubling. What is natural about us is we don't look for validation. When we know who we are, we don't look to be validated. We look for others seeing us. By understanding who we are, they will build or recognize our own self-concept, right? And that is much more powerful. Okay, I'll give you an example. I fell for it. Here we are. When I was a kid, my parents might say, to all the siblings or one of them, why don't you get grades like this sibling? Why are you not organized and clean like this person? Or whatever the thing was. But in my family, after I learned this, my children were quite young. I was lucky to come across two parenting sources that really broke open and showed me what the model is. And it was a hell in my own world for myself. It was awful, but well worth it now. And what I saw was it reminded me of a coach in high school who would use statements in front of the whole team to affirm, but in the way of building self-concept in one of the performers, the athletes. And the rest of us would perform at that level the next race. And we were on a seasonal schedule that was tight. So we raced 3 times a week. And how could that even be that we'd get to higher levels of performing within a few days? It's impossible if we think about it, but it's not, because we believed we could do so. We believed we could rise to that other athlete's level, because if they can do it, so can we. And we also do it because we want to know that that coach sees us the way they see that other person. So an example on the other side of it that I learned with my own kids is I said to my kids, putting your shoes on the shelf keeps our back hall safe. Now, I know as an adult, you think, boy, that sounds, I don't want to say that. I don't want to but it's a statement that actually is enforceable, but that's not how I was using it. What happened is eventually, it was about 6 weeks later, one kid put their shoes on the shelf when they came home. And the other kid was down the hall when I said, I see a kid who knows how to keep our home safe. The other kid came running from down the hall, hearing this, and put their shoes on the shelf too. Do you see how it solicited the opposite of what I was talking about earlier, which is you are not as smart as, you are not as organized or, tidy or whatever as this other sibling? That's siblings being pit against each other when of course we're unique. Of course we're going to have different skill sets. really what we want our parents to be doing, or in a work environment, is operating off of what is a powerful thing to call on from that sibling or that coworker. We want to focus on some of those parts of what's going on. And we want to set up a harmonious environment as a parent or a boss or a community leader or a politician, a pilot on an airplane who has a team of people, anything. We want to focus on really building self-concept in people, but more so not expecting people or rewarding them for being what the model dictates, which is them controlling themselves in a way where they are hampering their expression of who they are. This could be seen in somebody who hates their job for years and years and years, and then they don't do anything about it because they're too afraid to move forward. They've lost their sense of self-concept completely, or most of us don't even have it based on the way parenting works. Most of us haven't achieved it. And in my research, the only way to gain self-concept by yourself is to go out and travel internationally by yourself. And then I did that years after I knew that that was the case. And the reason is it forces you into situations where you have to see the measure of who you are, and you start to build your own self-concept. Really, what I'm saying is you let go and you be yourself, even though you don't know how to solve something or you don't know what to do. You know not to resist it. And that in that state of, I'm not going to say state, I think that's kind of gross, but in that way, of letting go, that's where the magic comes in. And we've all experienced that. That's not rocket science or unknown to any of us. But that is where we start to see the measure of our own selves and how we naturally connect to other people. Okay, I'll leave it there. I hope that that has shed some light on why I call it the model in my book and what that really means for us as humans. Like, follow, and share, do it all. Your friends want to hear this. And also, together, let's collapse narcissism because in truth, it serves no one.